had kind of 3 practice games yesterday we got to watch. We got to kind of clue in, see how things are. It looks like I'm just watching Major 2, right? It looks like I'm just watching the same clicks I just got done watching. And of course with Lacey, like, yeah, this guy loves content, of course, but he knows how much Clicks wants it. He knows what this means to Clicks. So when the time comes, he will lock in.
We all know the ongoing joke of the 4th place from Clicks. Unfortunately getting 4th place again with Veno back last year. And then this year, Major 2, he gets 2nd place. Thomas HD wins with this officially being his first FNCS title. Well, what about that question for Clicks?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are kind of, I've seen it on social a lot. Clicks is actually in his prime right now. Definitely those placements, they're kind of backing it up. We're talking about storylines when it comes down to primes and everything like that. Let's go ahead and focus in on Savage and Lachlan, right? Mr. Savage. Earlier this year, he kind of rejoined us for Major 2, joined another trio, got right back into the action, so I think he's locked in right there. The thing that I love about Mr. Savage is that, I remember competing against Guy, and he always had his supporter creator code. It was always like 200 IQ, because everybody always kind of...
Has the IQ from retired to qualifying grand finals, but now competing here at the Pro-Am, and you're talking about, does it count as an FNCS win? Well, if it does, if Mr. Savage Lachlan wins, even Peter Von all the antics, I mean... Definitely gonna be a funny ongoing joke.
I mean, how can you not be entertained? Right? You get the fact that this is reload, obviously an FNCS we watch. See you next game. Well, they're reloading back in. How do we kind of approach this new situation?
Mr. Savage.
I think it's important to kind of talk about, yeah, you're going to kind of get reloaded, right? Obviously, you're going to be flying in the sky. You're pretty... in the lobby, in the loophole. But there was a change, not... Lie down, closer to the land, have a little bit more immunity. Right now, the practice games yesterday. It really did not. I mean, these players is on a whole other level. And a lot of the core performance players are playing safe. They had the box, going for the late games, and trying to get a good placement, because in those end games, eliminations. But I'm trying to think to myself, okay, if you're low ground, you can have a lot of opportunities, players dropping down, running a lot of have to play aggressive if you want to match that amount of eliminations, and I think that's going to be kind of the deciding factor on who does end in first place.
Another deciding factor is how these players for their win condition in the end game. Obviously, with this being reload, we know that it has a high potential of going to a heal off, and we've seen a few players such as Peter Von Ozzy having 4 chug jugs and their loadout at one point, which is a great way to prepare. It's not the best way to get eliminations though, and you do need to have a bit of a combination. That's going to set them apart.
Love the fact that you're talking about the heal of, yeah, it would be just... that heal up, right? We got so many items that can kind of support that chug. Those switches in, but it's so funny because as I said, when in those practice games, I was like, wow, we've even got the terrain, POIs like Slurpee that have those barrels available. Cooper so smart, making sure that he went ahead and utilized those for his heal off. Gosh, they're just so smart sometimes.
And that's why it's important to put in the practice on this new map. I mean, not only do you have chug jug, med kits, splashes, but like you were mentioning, if you know where all these slurp barrels are, if you know where you need to go quickly into zone, keep yourself alive in the heal off.
I mean, bringing us back 3 years ago, Camiseti versus Queasy Vino, not knowing what you can do at a drop spot can really change the story of a game.
Why would you bring that up, Kelly? It's not like this is going to be a super close competition by the end of the day. That would be insane if it was. But it's that time. We're ready to jump aboard that. So, Catherine, over to you.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely time. You guys are talking so much about those practice games, Sarko, and they are out the window because the nerves have to have settled down. The battle bus is going to... are going to be put to the test.
But so many of these creators, so many of these pros, they're just so... what it's like to have all eyes on... kind of settles more into the fact that I just don't want to be last.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is, you know, everybody gets a little bit of that pride. And it kind of leads to my prediction of Peterbot and Ozzy antics, right? Huge fan of Ozzy. Everybody's got in the world probably a fan of Peterbot, but he was actually at last year's Global Championship. I asked him, what's next? How are you going to do it? He doesn't necessarily care to just win. He wants to dominate. He wants to be the championships. He is well on his way there.
But that's just the thing, the caliber of competitors that we have in this lobby mixed in with what you would expect to be a little bit more of a casual environment, but no, that's not the case. The Desk has been touching on it so heavily. A lot of our creators have really been putting in the time, effort, and hustle, and it's going to showcase here today. These matches, it might only be 6 games, Jacob, but I'm expecting some pretty big shifts to develop, especially by the time we hit the halfway point.
It's definitely going to be interesting, especially games 5 and 6. Those are the ones my eyes are definitely going to be glued on because that's when a lot of the chaos will start to ensue just a little bit. Depending on where you're at in leaderboard, we already see it in our FNCS finals. 40 points. You have to pick it up through eliminations. You don't start to earn placement points until you start to get into the top. And
optimistic and anticipate that they're going to be able to find the eliminations when it matters. Maybe they can be consistent with their placements, but one of my favorite quotes of the day actually came from Baxity earlier this morning because he said, if by games 5, 6, it looks like it's not happening, guess who I'm crashing out on? It's going to be Peterbot. If I'm not winning, he's not winning it either. And that kind of mentality, I wouldn't be surprised to see take place amongst multiple duos here today.
Going to be ready for game number 1.
All been waiting for one.
هاي الحيوانات كلها موازينك طبعا اكو حيوان متوحش اسمه الحيوان مغربل ضرب النجم مغربل صلوات على محمد طبعا راح ينقطع صوت لازم نسوي وقت صعب لا يا ضحك شوف هذا السعر 400 تليفون صدق لو نسر هذا النسر سعره 400 انا طبعا اخاف من الحيوانات بس مجبورين نصور تعال وياي ما صور السلام عليكم استاذ علاء موجود نايم قاعد برا السلام عليكم هو طبعا منزلين حاجه على مود ماي انا منزل انا من اشوفه هو طبعا منزلين حاجه على مود ماي قال له صدق الجيم من يجون العالم رجعنا استاذ علاء تعال وياي السلام عليكم السلام عليكم تعال حبي جنبك السلام عليكم شبع الزرقاء طبعا بس نتحمل الاعلام مجبورين عليه تعال السلام عليكم طبعا السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته تعالوا يوم بالفرصه طبعا طولنا عليكم بس حيوانات تفيدكم هنا
So Jess, yeah, you're trying to draw as little of attention as possible.